Hello there, Eagles fans, and welcome back to our Eagles Therapy Podcast. I'm Basil.
And I'm Baz.
We're recording Saturday, February 1st, 2025. Happy early Groundhog Day to all of you that celebrate. Also, happy early Super Bowl weekend, or Super Bowl week, I should say. Starting tomorrow, we kind of get officially into the Super Bowl week, you know?
Yeah,
we're here, man.
A lot of the announcers, guys we listen to, they're all flying out tomorrow. The players are flying out tomorrow. Although I did see a video from Bourbon Street, and it was filled with Eagles fans. It was crazy.
Awesome.
Obviously, they can't be going to the game, right? They're just there for the substance.
A lot of them probably are. A lot of them probably aren't, you know. They're just there to celebrate in the city at the same time that the Eagles are there, you know.
That's crazy, man.
It's not a bad idea. If you can't afford the ticket, it's kind of a good idea to kind of
a
little vacation once a year, go to the Super Bowl, you know. I don't know.
True. I mean,
stay near it.
Book your hotel in advance, you know. Yeah. I'm sure you could.
Plus, you always know when the date is. You know where it's going to be ahead of time, you know. So, okay. Obviously, we're not doing a full Super Bowl preview for this episode. This is kind of just our bye-week pod. We'll be coming at you later next week with a full Super Bowl preview and everything like that. But we just kind of want to talk about early Super Bowl thoughts, talk about some past Super Bowls, really focus on maybe speaking about the entire season as a whole.
And just kind of revel in the fact that we're at the Super Bowl again.
Absolutely.
You got a nice break. We got to have a pod, so Let's do it.
As always, let's give a little shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles fan club of Colorado Springs. They'll be meeting at Rhinos Sports and Spirits on Super Bowl Sunday. Rhinos opens at 11.
Yes.
There's going to be people there all day long. I know Ben said he's already planning on being there right away. I'm sure Steve will be there early. David and John, Rico will be there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of people will be there early. Probably Robin will be coming out. We don't know, but a lot of people will be there early. So, I mean, get there as early as you can because it's going to be filled pretty quickly, I could assume. And it's going to be a great atmosphere, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, you got to get there early. We did last year, 9 o'clock? The game wasn't until 4:30. By 10:30, man, our whole section was full of our regular people. So,
yeah, absolutely.
It definitely was a long day, but it was a great day, a lot of fun, a lot of good times. So,
definitely.
But I would definitely get there at opening and be ready. If not, you send somebody down to make sure they save some seats. I heard from Kimmy; she had sent me a text. Hey, where you guys going? What time? And then I thought she threw it out there. What time to get there? And I think
right away.
Yeah. If you want a decent seat, if you don't mind standing or moving around and stuff, that's fine.
They got a lot of TVs too, so a lot of options there. But all right, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about the season as a whole, Dad. Just kind of in retrospect, is that the word? Yeah, in a microscope, whatever. Let's talk about the season as a whole. So, one of the best seasons, of course, in franchise history. 14-3 on the season, 5-1 in the division. Obviously, got that second seed, and it allowed a Week 18 bye for us. Before I really ask any questions on that, I think you had a little bit of a sponsor you wanted to talk about real quick?
Yeah, actually, if you're looking for any memorabilia, gear, my son-in-law and his buddy, they do a thing on TikTok. They have a TikTok shop, and they do where you can bid in. You can get in there and join it. It's called MVP Break. And what you do is, it's just like a live show, and you can grab, different divisions. And when they fill up all 8 divisions, they open up some packages, and usually it's usually a signed shirt or a signed helmet or something like that. So, but one of the things that they've been trying to do and innovate a little bit is if you bid in and you get a shirt from, let's say, the Chargers, they let you trade. So it's kind of a new thing. And from what my daughter was telling me, some of the other places on TikTok are doing the same thing now, where before, if you got a Devontae Johnson shirt or whatever, you were stuck with it. But yeah, they let you get in there and trade for it. So, so if you're looking for some gear and you're into that kind of situation, it's called MVP Break. It's on TikTok, and they do it every weekday, Monday to Friday, starting at, I believe, 6 a.m. on the where are we at? Mountain. So
Mountain time, yep.
East Coast 2 hours before, West Coast an hour behind. So
awesome.
I don't know where we are as far as, I think we're on the same time as Pacific right now. So,
yeah, I'm sure.
But anyway, MVP Break, check it out. My son-in-law Jake, he's on there being nuts and having fun.
Yep, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, one of the best Eagles teams really of all time, 14-3, matched a franchise record from a couple of years ago, a year in which we also went to the Super Bowl, a year in which we also went to the Super Bowl to face the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
overall as a season, Dad, like I said, 14-3, 5-1 in the division. Unfortunately, we had that one loss to Washington the week that Jalen got knocked out.
Right.
Second seed allowed us that Week 18 bye, and you know what? My laptop just died, so I'm going to have you talk a little bit as I plug my charger in because I totally forgot to charge it.
No problem. Great season. Yeah, it's funny though. You started off not so great. Like we were 2-2. The defense did not look that great. We knew we had some offense. We'll see how we would do with Saquon. That was a work in progress. Obviously, it didn't last too long to worry because he started busting it out pretty early in the season there. But, when we went 2-2 before the bye, it's funny, we hated the 5-week bye, and we're like, oh, it's terrible. Well, it changed the season for us. Without that bye week in the spot, sticking in Cooper DeJean when he came in, changing the entire defense. The defense became the number one defense from that moment on. I don't think it looked back at all. It's incredible, really, how it worked out. But, yeah, to be 2-2, kind of got spanked by the Bucs, which, after last year's playoff loss, it didn't look very good for us.
Yeah, it was a little.
It was, but we got past that. We had the big 10-game win streak, and then, we obviously did what we did. And, we were trying to get that home field the whole season. And then, of course, Detroit loses, so we get home field. So it all worked out for the best. Yeah. We didn't play our guys in week 18. People were crying that Saquon should have went for the record. But now everyone knows, that was the right move because he's ready to break the all-time season record, including playoffs for rushing yards. Yep. And he's been incredible the last 3 weeks. I don't have to tell you about it. You already know. So 2 big touchdowns against the Rams, a big one last week on the opening drive of the game.
First play of the game.
Unbelievable. I mean, like we said, we talked about it in the podcast last week. You and I didn't even jump up. We didn't even go crazy. We looked at each other in disbelief, kind of like most of the TikToks and some of the YouTube stuff I've seen where even Washington fans were watching the game and they, like, oh, man, we drove 18 plays and got 3 points and we're going to beat these guys. And first play, he runs and he does that little spin move and he's off to the races. And, it wasn't over at that point, but it sure felt pretty good to see that come out of it. So
yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you kind of stated early on in the season, there was some fear, of course. First series of the season. Hurts threw an interception from our own, into our own red zone, as you remember.
Yes.
Saquon's first carry of the season, his first carry of his Eagles career, he slipped and lost 5 yards. 2 plays later, Hurts throws a pick, and you're like, oh my God, like that did. Well, look at this.
It's not going to work.
It's crazy. And early on in that Packers game, we saw a showcase of how good this defense could have been and was going to be and ended up being, of course, amazing.
Yes.
But, early on in that first game against the Packers, you're starting to get worried. But, man, they turned it around. Of course, Saquon had 3 touchdowns in that game, over 100 yards rushing, of course, with 109 with 2 rushing touchdowns and receiving touchdown.
Wow.
And it was a display of what to come.
Well, that receiving touchdown was that incredible one on the right side of the end zone.
Yeah, yep.
He caught that. I mean, we knew the weapon he was. Everyone knew that he was good. Was he worth the money that they paid him? That was the big knock on it. And obviously that's coming to fruition.
So the next 3 games, we lose 2 of them, 1 at home to the Falcons. The last time we lost at home, the last time we lost in the Link was week 2. And then, of course, go to beat the Saints, which was great. It was a tough game, fought hard, but that was also the first game that we really saw Saquon's explosiveness.
On the defense.
Yes. 147 yards. He had 65 for his long, the 65-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter to get our first score of the game. And once he did that, it was like, oh, man, he's really got a chance to be really something different this year. Obviously, against Tampa Bay the next week, we get beat down pretty big. But even in that game, Saquon had a 59-yarder at one point to open up the half.
Right.
So you just know that he has this ability and it just continues on for the rest of the season. Obviously, the huge week against the Rams, huge games against the Giants.
It's funny. We've never seen those long touchdown runs like we have from any back ever in a season. I mean, what's he had, 7 over 50, 60, something like that.
Something like that. I mean,
but it's been incredible. And it's funny because we go back to that Saints game, which really kind of was a season maker, I think, because week before they put up 44, I believe. They were looking like the best offense in the NFL. And, then we're
talking about the Saints?
The Saints, yes. We beat them 15-12, and that was the big Dallas Goedert game. So we were like, oh my gosh, what do we have? We really didn't know what we had, but I'll tell you what, after the bye, it wasn't skyrockets, but like I kept saying every game, remember I kept saying
it's going up.
Trajectory just kept going up.
It's going up.
And, I didn't believe the defense was going to continue to be better and better every week, but it just was.
Yes. Yep. So after the bye, of course, we nice little comeback game against the Browns. That was when everyone was calling for us to fire Nick Sirianni, and I was one of them. We made this TikTok about him. It's hilarious. If you can get a chance, go check it out. But no, it was a lot of fun and that type of thing. But man, it was worrisome that this was happening. And from then on, it turned around. We beat the Giants 28-3. Saquon has a great game. We killed the Bengals 37-17. We beat the Jaguars. Of course, that's the backwards hurdle game by Saquon. Right. Destroy the Cowboys in our first victory in Dallas since 2017. I think 2017. Yeah. Then beat the Commanders in a well-fought game, and in that game, Saquon, 2 rushing touchdowns in the fourth quarter, huge at the end. The game against the Rams, 255 yards for Saquon. We're just destroying these teams, and then the Ravens, we beat them 24-19, and that was with them scoring a last-second touchdown.
Yes, it was incredible. Just the way the team continued to grow and grow every week. I mean, it's something I've never seen before. And with Saquon in there, just never know when it was going to hit a home run, which was incredible because, there was times that he would have, the -2 yard, the -3 yard carry, and you're like, okay, we got to keep going. And then he would just bust one.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Then we get to the Panthers game, another big milestone of the season.
Yeah.
Saquon breaks the all-time Eagles rushing yards in a single season, still with 4 games left to go after that point. But that was the big game where it was like, after that, Brandon Graham and A.J. Brown said passing needs to be improved. Right. Brandon Graham goes on that radio station and oh, yeah, they're not really friends anymore, says all that stuff. And you're like, oh, my God, like this could set us back so much. Like, doesn't do so. We go against the Steelers. Jalen has his best game of the season. AJ and Devontae have their best games of the season. Beat them 27-13 in Philly.
Pittsburgh was 10-3 at the time.
Yeah, we set them on a 5-game losing streak.
We finished their season.
Yeah,
they lost every game after that.
Yep. The next game, hard to talk about with the Commanders. We play them the second time. Jalen leaves in the 11th play, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like this could be really bad because then the next week he's not coming back, and you're like, he didn't clear the concussion protocol, and you're like, well, thankfully the Cowboys are a pretty sorry team. We made them a little bit more sorry by beating them 41-7 and having our backup quarterbacks destroy them, and then end the season with a nice little bye week. Because we can't get the first seed, number 1 seed, and our backups take down the New York Giants.
Just destroy them. Yeah, it was great. It was one regular season. And it continued because I had said it so many times through the season with the podcast that we need the young guys to get time, and it continued every week. Even when like Slay would go out and then Rodgers would come in and look good. You're like, okay, it's like he stamped it. And then Tyler Steen had to come in a few times when Becton got hurt, and just these guys that were green. No pun, came out and just continued to get more and more, more work and more time to play and just get better and know their spot. And you saw it the last week there with Shipley having the big kick return, and then he ends up running for a bunch of yards at the end of the game. Here's another guy who, just continually got better, and now he's got the confidence.
Forced a fumble.
Fumble on the kickoff, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you just saw so many bit players come in there. The biggest stain was really the injury to N'Kobe, because without that, I mean, we'd be really flying high. But, that was unfortunate. But, then Warren Burks comes in, and look what he's done. Yeah. That just shows you that this team does not just play their 8 guys and say this is what we need. Everybody gets a chance. Everybody's ready to go.
Yes. At the finish of the regular season, I kind of wanted to talk about just some stats there, just as far as the regular season goes. So obviously, Saquon ends the season leading the league in rushing yards with 2,005 total rushing yards, 13 touchdowns, good for 125.3 yards per game, 5.8 yards per attempt, which is unbelievable. A nice little 278 receiving yards alongside 2 touchdowns. It's only 17 yards per game as far as receiving, but you also know the fact that Kenny Gainwell gets a lot of those pass attempts, his way and everything like that. So overall, incredible year for Saquon, of course, getting leading the league in rushing yards, getting the All-Pro team, getting to the Pro Bowl, first team All-Pro, everything like that. I mean, it's our first team All-Pro running back, of course, since Shady,
Right.
which was just great to see, and it's just an incredible season for him all around. On the flip side of it, a not so great season, stellar season for our quarterback. Now, of course, we weren't asking him to do, as much and everything. 361 attempts, only 361 attempts. It's really not that much. A great 68.7 completion percentage, 2,903 yards, 18 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions. But alongside that, total of 13 rushing touchdowns, I believe, or am I underselling that? 14. I'm sorry. Yeah. So 14 rushing touchdowns. So 18 plus 14, 32 total touchdowns to only 5 interceptions.
It's funny because you don't really do that with other quarterbacks. Maybe with Lamar, maybe one other, maybe Josh Allen, where you say, he's thrown 22 touchdowns, and you go, that's not that many. But then he got 15, or he's responsible for another 12 or 14, whatever. Yeah. So, when you start pushing 30-plus touchdowns in the season, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah. The biggest down being affected by our great running game was really for our receivers. A.J. Brown only getting 1,079 yards. Good for him to break the 1,000 mark. Right. Only 7 touchdowns. And Devontae Smith only 833 yards and 8 touchdowns. Yeah, you give these guys some credit. They both missed 4 games this season. Obviously, Week 18 being one where they sat down. Right. But the other 3 games that they missed, they had a lot of tough injuries this season. Devontae with a concussion, A.J. with his knee and his ankle. There's a lot of time was missed by those guys. And speaking of missing some games, was Dallas Goedert. Only played in 10 games, 496 yards. 49 yards a game for wide receivers, not that. Or sorry, for a tight end. 49 yards a game for a tight end. You're pretty happy with when you have.
But you know what? It's another one of those things where you just get in the playoffs, get to the pot, get your best. And look what he's done the last 4 weeks.
Great.
It's been Dallas Goedert's had 2 or 3 impact plays every one of these playoff games.
Yes.
And of course, AJ last week was just incredible. So we know we can do it. Devontae had a great catch too as well. So you're firing all cylinders again. They got the passing game. It's funny if you watch any the highlight shows when Jalen threw the touchdown to AJ. That's what I do.
Yeah.
He was very, very emotional. And it's funny because he's not. You see him on the sidelines during a game, and he's not even smiling. He's not mad. But he was playing he was wearing on his shoulder in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah,
it was a beautiful play.
On the defensive side for the regular season, as far as some guys up in the high numbers, C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship both walk away with a good little grouping of interceptions. C.J. got 6 on the season.
Did he get 6?
Yep, 1 pick 6, and then Reed Blankenship with 4 interceptions on the season. Only 3 other guys with picks after that. Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, and Sidney Brown each have 1, and Sidney Brown's was in the last game of the season. So not a lot of turnovers forced as far as through the air for us this season. It felt like it was really more of a forced fumble and fumble recovery type season.
Well, Blankenship, he's still got a nose for the ball. He had the recovery just last week. The fumble recovery. He's always around the ball. He's just as a player, man.
Yes, definitely. So, overall, it was one of the best regular seasons we've really ever been a part of, which is crazy to consider that halfway through the season we were calling for the head coach's job. And we were talking about our quarterback not being able to throw the ball.
No, it's true.
And not just us, the sports media entirely, really, but just hilarious how that happens.
But you know what? We're critical fans. We're not going to sit back and go, like some of the things you see written on, oh, it's fine. You guys should shut up. And no. If I see it, I'm going to call it out. When he's thrown for 100 yards, 60 yards total, it's not acceptable to me. And obviously we won the game and win the games, but you're going to need more. And if we can get through this next game, you'll see what happens.
We'll see. Yep. Then let's talk about the playoffs. So 3 playoff games we have to play to get to the Super Bowl because we didn't get that 1 seed. Ends up being that Week 18 bye really did help us out a lot, resting all those players, giving Saquon a chance to rest. Because we come out against the Packers, beat them 22-10. Not a great game from Jalen, struggled at times, but a pretty darn good game for Saquon.
6 for 6.
I know.
We thought that we were flying high at that point because there's been some games where you're 0 for 5 and you're like, oh, we just got to get him going.
Yeah.
That was a weird flip on that game.
That was a game that also was just tough because, A.J. Brown only 1 catch for 10 yards. You do find out afterwards, the concussion for Hurts was even worse. He couldn't really study game film. You find out A.J. Brown's nursing a knee injury, all that kind of stuff. It ends up being, pretty tough to overcome, I would say.
But then the vaunted Packers offense, who were getting a lot of pub the whole week with their quarterback, they only put up 10 points. So
absolutely. defense was unbelievable.
It was a great game.
Biggest note of that game, of course, losing Nakobe Dean for the rest of the season. Possibly next season was really the biggest gut punch of the season entirely, but alongside the Brandon Graham injury against the Rams earlier this season. But okay, go to the next game. Rams come to Philly, playing a nice little snow game. As we remember, the last time the Eagles played in a nice blizzard game, it was against Matt Stafford as well, in that Snow Bowl back in 2013. Eagles are able to walk away with the win in that one, 28-22. Two forced fumbles against Matt Stafford and then Kyron Williams a little bit later in the game. And then an incredible another 70-yard run by Saquon to start to put the game out of reach.
Which we thought put the game out of reach, but it didn't quite.
Yeah, didn't quite. They get the ball back, they go down and score, and you're like, shoot.
Yeah.
A couple really bad play calls by Kellen Moore later.
Yeah.
Defense is back out on the field, and you're starting to get really, really worried. Yeah. Thankfully, player of the game, Jalen Carter, who walked away with 2 sacks in that game, gets that huge sack to really run the clock, and they throw the ball away on the next play, and that's all she wrote.
And he strapped his helmet on for those last 2 plays of the game. It was incredible. And then it's so funny because the 4th down play was so anticlimactic. You know, you and I are like, what's he throwing at? The hot dog stand? Like, the ball was 20 feet over his head, but then when you look at the film, he saw Jalen Carter, coming in looking like the Rocky Mountains, and he said, I got to get rid of this ball. And he did. He did.
Yeah. So after that, the Eagles, on the other side, halfway across the country, the Commanders, the night before, destroyed the Lions. So we know, if we win, we're hosting the conference championship game. And you're pretty happy with that as well.
So unlikely.
It was.
It really felt like there's no way we're going to get that number 1 seed. We didn't, but we got the home NFC championship game again.
It's true. In reseeding sense, we got the number 1 seed and the season. Not the regular, but,
Yeah.
We host the Commanders, divisional rivals, so you go into it a little bit worried. Back and forth game a little bit early on. We kind of always held on to that lead. And then Saquon just blows it open the first play of the game. But then our defense just forcing 4 turnovers in that game. Interception from Jay Daniels. I think it was his first pick of the postseason. Put an end to a great rookie season for him. But 3 other forced fumbles by us, 1 on the kickoff. It was amazing. That game was incredible. Yeah. And like you said, you told the story, the first play of the game, Saquon takes that 60-yard touchdown, and you're just like, I don't
It's
really
funny
know
because
what to say.
the announcers in the game were just as dumbfounded as you and I were. I mean, we didn't know how to react. Oh, my gosh, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most underwhelming calls I've ever listened to because I went back and listened to it, and you're just like, but it's probably because the guy's like, are you kidding me?
I can't throw any more adjectives on that. Just let the play speak for itself.
It's illogical. It's illogical that could happen. It doesn't even make sense. That's the worst word I've ever used to describe something, but whatever. But no, all in all, like we said, to end, getting into the Super Bowl, going 17-3 as your record really with the whole regular season and playoffs, and now Saquon only 29 yards away from tying the all-time regular season plus playoffs rushing yards record. He would need 30 to break it, and it's in grasp, man, and that Super Bowl is right there around the corner, and we're excited, man. What a season it's been.
By the way, I wanted to say, nice shirt you got on there.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Mom, she went ahead. Shout out to my mom. She went ahead and bought us some NFC Championship shirts. Yes. I guess we should state that this one's actually Mary's, my sister's. So we'll be shipping that off and cleaning that.
Anyone that knows me knows I don't go and buy a new shirt right away. I got to wait for things to happen. But it came in today, and I said we got to wear them for the podcast. So
definitely.
NFC Champions. I don't even know if it has a year on there. I haven't looked at it, but
me neither. Actually, it's kind of funny. It's got the
sticker on there.
It's got the Super Bowl logo on there, saying they're going there, and it's got the NFL logo here.
Very good.
Doesn't really say a season, does it?
Not really. No.
That's funny. I don't know. It's cool, but it's got the Super Bowl logo. That's awesome.
Right. So
cool.
You know what season was for.
That's funny.
But anyway,
all right. Let's get into some awards now. I'm going to be awarding for the regular season. But also, I'm going to throw some postseason stuff into it, too, just to maybe say the same guy or a different guy, yada, 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 all that sort of stuff. So season MVP and season offensive player of the year, I have a feeling you'll agree with me on this, and probably anybody watching at home.
It's Cam Jurgens.
It's Cam Jurgens.
Hey, man, he helped.
He had a good season, though. It's Saquon Barkley.
Definitely.
Saquon Barkley, end of the season, of course, like we already talked about, 2,005 yards, 13 rushing touchdowns, first team All-Pro, Pro Bowl, led the league in rushing yards. And It's just been incredible. And to throw the playoffs and the postseason there, still the same thing. He's still the MVP of the postseason.
And unfortunately, he made the MVP award irrelevant this year.
It's completely true.
Right.
And it's funny because towards the end of the year, the last 3 games.
Unless all those people that said they weren't voting for him voted for him. But
that's true.
He's definitely the MVP.
There's
no other designation that you can give.
It's true.
Not Offensive Player of the Year. It's the most valuable player of any of the teams in the NFL. It's Saquon Barkley.
It's true. Yeah.
All right, I'll stop saying
No, I'm sorry. I 100% agree with you. And it's a bummer because, we talked about it before we came on camera, and it's a bummer that the voting does have to take place, for the regular season. And I get that. I get it to a sense. But now you're looking at it, and those 2 other guys who are probably one of them is going to win MVP, they're sitting at home.
They're sitting in Cancun somewhere.
You're right. They're not at home. But, it's just crazy, that Saquon, got better into the playoffs. He rushed for 205 yards in a playoff game. I mean, I should have done some more research on it. How many times has that happened? It's unbelievable, and it's a bummer because you're right. It's a bummer that we won't win the MVP. But it's like, man, there's so many people who, after even the regular election, they're rushing to change their vote, and there's a lot of people in the NFL who should be doing the same thing.
But again, I'm not a big awards guy, right? We know what award you want to get, right? That's the ultimate goal. But it's just it's a shame because this is something that you get to talk about 20 years from now, and the guy that gets the award this year probably is going to stick it on a bus and let it go somewhere because neither of them want it.
It's true.
That's
actually so true.
Favorites.
Yeah. Let's get into Defensive Player of the Year. So this one's a little bit harder to choose. Now, I shouldn't say it's hard to choose. We obviously know, and I know you'll agree, that it was Zach Bond. Zach Bond had an unbelievable season at linebacker for us, especially a guy who had never played. Well, I don't want to say never played, but it was not his position. It was a new position he was getting into. Yeah. Everyone knows this.
He's a glorified special teamer and maybe third down rusher.
Yes,
that's about it. But the guys played, and it's not just like it's every game, every single game. You pick at any of the playoff games and you just watch him and he led the team in tackles. He forced a fumble, recovered a fumble. He had a sack or something. Just unbelievable.
Yeah. Walked away with a first-team All-Pro. Also got a Pro Bowl nod, which was just great for him. Total in stats, ending the season with only 1 interception, but 4 passes defensed, 5 forced fumble, which is like Khalil Mack numbers. I mean, especially, he'd never forced a fumble in his career before. Let me say that. Right. In his first 4 years with the Saints, never forced a fumble, and he got 5 this year. Yeah. 1 fumble recovery, 3.5 sacks, which is kind of surprising to hear, but 151 total tackles, 93 solo, 58 assists, and 11 tackles for loss, along with 5 QB hits. Not much else to say. Obviously, the Defensive Player of the Year for us should be winning the Defensive Player of the Year for the NFL.
His stats next to some of the older players that won Defensive Player of the Year in the last 20 years, his numbers are better.
Yeah. The Luke Kuechly one is the big one. That's the one that's usually compared to. Yeah. In 2014, he won, I think, Defensive Player of the Year. Or was it? Oh, no, 2013. He won Defensive Player of the Year. And, you take their stats next to it, and you're kind of like, oh, I don't know.
He might have had him in interceptions, but he didn't have him in fumble caused or forced fumbles. So
stuff like that.
Tackles for loss. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, he had no forced fumbles in that season for Luke Kuechly. But I digress. Going into the playoffs, this is where I had a harder time choosing the playoff winner. Now, I would say it could still probably be Zach Bond, but I put Jalen Carter.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where I kind of wanted you to jump in. I know you had a stat you were very eager to share.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those funny stats, that the stat makers come up with. But for pressures in a single postseason, the record for quarterback pressures is 23 by Aaron Donald, and right now Carter has 20 quarterback pressures in the 3 playoff games. Of course, Chris Jones has 20 as well, so they're both. And I don't know if that's this year, but definitely this year for Carter. Okay. I don't know if Chris Jones is this year.
I can't imagine it's this year. I don't know if he's been that dominant, but it's fine.
So with 4 quarterback pressures coming up in the Super Bowl, he would have the postseason quarterback pressure record.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah,
it's a real record, but it's just a stat that I
still
actually it was Mike Roman. Mike Roman threw it out there. Yeah,
but it was Mike Roman on the page.
He's always giving us stuff to throw in the podcast. So shout out to Mike. Thank you much.
We love it. We love it. Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
I agree.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Rookie of the Year. So this one's tough because there's 2 guys, and one who you'd say probably has to win it by sheer played the whole season, but the other one kind of turned the season around. So we wrote down Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean.
Yeah.
Now I wrote Quinyon's name first because in the end he should win Defensive Player of the Rookie of the Year. He won't, but he should.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately the interceptions didn't come for him or Cooper, but Quinyon Mitchell all season long was one of the top lockdown corners in the NFL.
He was shutting down guys like Terry McLaurin and C.D. Lamb.
Yes.
These guys were getting one catch for 10 yards, and this was early in the season. It wasn't late in the season. It was when he was a true rookie.
True rookie, yes.
And, I mean, even if in the last game, and I don't know if you guys rewatched the games or anything, but just watch him on a couple of the out passes they tried early in the game where Jaden Daniels stepped back and he threw that quick left out. Quinyon come flying in. Luckily, the guy didn't catch the ball because they would have lost 5 yards. But he missed it, but Quinyon wiped him out. And he had another play just like it a little bit later early in the game as well, where they just decided that we can't throw against this guy. We can't throw it to that side of the field.
Yep.
And that is a big thing to have when you got Slay on the other side.
Yep. Oh, definitely.
Speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And if Quinyon had 4 picks, he missed a few early in the season. But if he had 4 picks or so, no, hands down, Rookie of the Year. You got the guy over in L.A. who's fantastic.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Verse.
Yeah. He was right there. But if Quinyon had the four picks with all the shutting down he did, it would have been a no-brainer, I think. It would have been easy. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to.
Yeah, the nice thing you pointed out, I think last week, Quinyon Mitchell didn't get any interceptions in the regular season, like you said, but 2 in the postseason in these 3 games. So going into the Super Bowl with 2, you got to give him the Defensive Player of the Year, probably over Cooper DeJean. But got to mention Cooper DeJean because, dude, week 5 we had our bye, and at that point it felt like our defense was just missing tackles, missing this, couldn't do this, couldn't do that, couldn't pressure.
What was that one game? Had like 17 missed tackles?
Yeah, it was the Tampa Bay. It was week 4. So after week 5, you take out Avonte Maddox from the lineup, and Cooper DeJean comes in and changes the defense.
Comes the defense.
I mean, it was unbelievable. And then, I mean, in the first game he played in against the Browns, I'm pretty sure he walked away with a half a sack or 1 total sack. Yeah. I mean, it was really you saw it happen. Like, it happened in real time. It happened that Cooper DeJean was on the field and the team was better. And it was like, oh my gosh, like it was kind of confusing in a way. I really. He also had 6 tackles in that Browns game. And I think the week after when we played the Bengals, or maybe 2 weeks later, he had that huge fourth down play. I mean, it was unbelievable. It's crazy to think that this was the same season, because
that's the one thing that I thought we always needed. And I say it every game. You got to cover him tight off the line. Quit giving him that quick 3-yard pass play that they turn into a 10-yard play. Cooper DeJean is the one that stopped it in, like, I don't know, every game. He does not let the guy get past him. He's a tackling machine. He's a surefire tackler. We were talking about maybe have 3 missed tackles the entire season. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but he's just so sure-handed. And if he doesn't make the tackle, he stops the guy, and then they come and clean it up. I mean, it's just been amazing.
Yep. Most Improved Player Award. I kind of wrote this in kind of as we were talking about the MVP, because I was like, well, I should throw another one in here. Most Improved Player Award. This one's a little bit tough.
Yeah, there's a few.
Because right off the bat, I was thinking, well, Cam Jurgens, he had a good season last year, but this year he's been great. You could also go with Saquon Barkley, who was not on the team last year, of course, but try to give it to someone on the team. But Saquon Barkley, Zach Bond, they would both win it right away. And I think I got to go with Nolan Smith.
Okay, yeah.
I know Kobe Dean is right there too.
Right.
It's tough. I know Kobe Dean did get in.
Because I had another one in mind.
Okay, tell me.
I would say it would be Milton Williams. I just thought he had a great season. Now, he's a scrappy guy. He's an interior lineman. He's not sexy. You're not going to get the big play. But you're right. Nolan Smith was incredible. He seemed like he had 1 or 2 monster plays in every game and 5 or 6 great plays.
Yes.
He was excellent in the run. He was, getting sacks. What did he finish with, 7.5? Something like that. Let me see. He's got a few extra more in the playoffs.
I have it pulled up here now. Yes, 6.5 at the end of the season. Yeah. But no, in the playoffs, he's got 4.
Yeah.
He's got 4 in 3 playoff games.
Great sack on
Jordan Love.
He had Jordan Love.
Jaden Daniels. You're thinking
Jaden Daniels one where it was, knocked. They were going for it at their own 30, and he tackled him, and now we took over and put the game away.
It was game ender. It was. It was a game-ending sack.
Yeah, that was because now and the thing about this past game, I don't have to tell you, we scored 8 touchdowns. We scored I think 7 of 9 drives or something like that.
7 of 8 or 8 of 10 or something like that, yeah.
So, I mean, they didn't settle for 3, which is what you got to do coming up next week as well. We just got to, you can't settle for 3. You got to go for the 6. You got to go for the touchdown.
And the best thing about the Nolan Smith thing, and you could say this about all the guys, Nakobe Dean, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, he's only 24 years old. And I mean, he just turned 24 2 weeks ago. Like, these guys, these are young. Nakobe Dean's probably around the same age. Jordan Davis around that. Jalen Carter, these guys are so young, man. I mean, they're all going to get better, of course. But yeah, the Nolan Smith thing, last year everyone kind of remembers he had 1 sack in the regular season, and it was that Miami Dolphins game. We were there. We saw his first sack in person. And the whole season was like, man, why is he playing more? Why is he doing this?
I know.
But this year, to include the playoffs into it, 6.5 sacks, and then with the playoffs, got to 10.5 sacks on the full length of the season.
Thank God we've got Vic Fangio, who realized his talent and said, "You're the man." Because last year I thought he should have played. Remember, we would say it at every podcast. He had, 8 plays or 6 plays, and I remember just going, "What are you doing? You got to use these young guys and get them going." So I mean, it worked out. He learned what he's got to do. He's fantastic. So, yeah, I agree with you there.
Yep.
I will throw in, if we were going by postseason, especially the last game, I would say Jordan Davis because, my Lord, he had that fantastic sack. This guy's like as big as a mountain, and he comes in and then just knocks Jaden Daniels down to the ground, and he had him in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Incredible. And then he had like 2 or 3 other big plays where he busted through the line. So hopefully he's seeing it clear or something because, man, he started to play great.
Yes. No, I agree. And then last one, you kind of already mentioned him, so I want to kind of lead into that with it. Assistant Coach of the Year. You can make an argument for both, but I would say Kellen Moore probably to me he's been a tad bit underwhelming. But Vic Fangio has turned this defense and this team around.
I mean, defense in the NFL. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And last year, what were we, 29th, 30th? It was horrible. It was. I mean, end of last season, the way last season ended, and I know you were all watching, that collapse. And not just the offense's inability to do anything, but the defense's inability to do anything, but also they didn't want to do anything. Like, they completely didn't want to play. Like, the defense gave up as players. And for them to turn around, basically change almost everything on the defense. I mean, there's maybe 2 or 3 players from last year still starting. Right. It's unbelievable. I mean, to turn this completely around, it felt like at the end of last year, it felt like we were set back for like 2-3 years.
Well, first of all, I thought we were never going to bring that up again in the podcast.
Yeah, sorry. I'm
no,
sorry,
it's always got to be talked about.
It does.
Because the peaks and valleys, buddy, and that's the way it works. And right now we're in a peak. We were in a valley last year.
Definitely.
And, it's funny because also the way we started the season, we didn't know where we're going to go, right?
Yep.
We didn't know if the hangover was going to be there from last year's collapse, but it wasn't. And they put another fantastic 14-win season. What do they got now? 17 wins?
Yeah.
And 2 losses or 3 losses?
17 wins, 3 losses. Yep. It's crazy.
That's the most wins they've ever had this season, I guarantee you that.
And then the last thing I have to mention for Coach of the Year, obviously I know Nick Sirianni's not in the actual running for NFL Coach of the Year. And you can have your debates and everything like that on who should win it and who should, all that sort of stuff. Nick Sirianni, man, the fact that you lose, last year, thing happens, we don't want to mention it.
Right.
But not just that, you lose Fletcher Cox, all-time great defensive lineman,
retires,
all-time great Eagles defensive tackle, possibly the greatest Eagles defensive tackle in history. And then you lose Jason Kelce,
yes,
possibly the greatest center of all time, and without a doubt the greatest center in Eagles history. Oh, for sure. Top 3 center all time, whatever you want, a debate you want to have. You turn around, you got Jalen Carter, you got Milton Williams, Jordan Davis on the defensive side. And you bring Cam Jurgens finally to start. He gets to the Pro Bowl. Carter gets to the Pro Bowl. It's unbelievable, and I know a lot of this credit really should go to the offensive line coach and the defensive line coach. But Nick puts together the staff. We said a lot of bad things about Nick this year, and you have to give him credit. Not only did he get the staff that turned these guys into Pro Bowlers, he makes them believe in the message to make them play.
Well, it's funny. I don't know if you saw the sideline with CJ, GJ, and him were embracing there towards the end of the game, and you could just tell. He's like, that's what he does. He is the glue. He's the players. They like him. Some of the other guys, the talking heads, they don't like him. We don't care, right?
Yeah, that's how it works. Right. Okay, let's get into their Super Bowl. So again, like we said, we're not doing a full Super Bowl preview, and this episode's already got 40 minutes, so we're going to kind of try to go faster here, but we'll see what we got. Maybe we'll record again. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Let's talk about the Super Bowl a little bit. Early edge. Who do you think has the early edge, Dad?
In the game?
Yes.
I think the Eagles have it.
Really?
Yeah. I know all about Kansas City and everything, and people are going to talk about this, that, and the other thing. I think we're younger. I think we're faster. I think we're better coached. They got a great defense coordinator as well. I think hopefully Kellen Moore will open the playbook up like he did this past week with some of the runs to the tight end and some of the sweep jets, and it looked this way and ran that way. But I do. I mean, as far as I know the line's 1.5 Kansas City, and it's not going to be easy, as we know. But I do. I think we have the edge. I think they. It depends how it starts off, but I think every game they struggled. Every game they scored the most points in the season this past week, 32 points. They've won all these games. They barely lost. They barely beat teams blocking field goals at the end of the game. They barely beat Denver. I mean, there's so many games you could point to, but I just think we're younger. I think we're younger, and I think we have more. I really do.
Okay. Give me an early matchup that you like.
It's going to be the offensive line against Chris Jones. It's going to be how can we run the ball. I mean, they don't have a big-time defensive end like most of the teams we've played here.
Karlaftis is good.
He's very good.
Karlaftis is very good.
But I think, if we can sweep that side like we've been doing, and, some of these guys continue to play like we do and we can run all over them, I think that, they're not the best run defense in the league. And I just think our offensive line is going to win the game for us, and our defensive line.
So that's my matchup is the defensive line. They got some good interior offensive line. Their guard, obviously Creed Humphrey, one of the best centers in the league for sure. But Jalen Carter, man, I mean, I don't care who he's going up against. I like his odds. And I like Milton Williams and Jordan Davis and Moro Ojomo playing opposite him.
I think there's some nastiness on our team, too. They like to hit.
Even the game, like the forced fumbles.
Even CJ had a great play in the game. I haven't even gone back to watch that play, but he comes in and it's just that he stops a guy in his tracks. The guy doesn't even move.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just incredible when it comes to it, and hopefully we can keep it up. And I hope there's no bruises or anything or late week announcements. That's the scary part. But,
Patrick Mahomes has attempted 210 more passes this season than Jalen Hurts. I just noticed that now. 581 pass attempts. I think that's including the playoffs. But Hurts has 361.
Well, you made me watch the Super Bowl from a couple of years ago the other night, and I didn't want to do it. But they were gashing us on the run in that game.
They were.
Early on.
They were over us, and we couldn't run at all.
And we couldn't run at all. I mean, we went to it. We had Boston Scott, Gainwell, right?
Yeah.
And Hurts was running. And then Miles, but he fumbled on the first play of the game and barely had any carries.
And no running back had more than 7 carries.
It's unbelievable. So, I mean, that's some of the things to look for. Obviously we're going to get into a little bit deeper, but that's where I think, I think that just a big offensive line with just more confidence, and not just the 5 starting guys. You got the other guys.
Yeah. Let's real quick talk about kind of the difference. What I wanted to do, I think this was Aunt Margie's idea.
Yes, it was.
My dad's sister. Talk a little bit about the difference between the two teams from the Eagles this year and the Eagles 2 years ago in the Super Bowl.
Gotcha.
So let's talk about the starters. Now, on the offensive side, almost the exact same. The big things missing, of course, could be Jason Kelsey and Isaac Seumalo, and then, of course, the really big difference would be Miles Sanders and then the Quez Watkins wide receiver. But so obviously the running back side, you got Miles Sanders who played for us last time, and you replaced him with Saquon Barkley.
Right.
I would say that's a major upgrade.
Big thumbs up.
And I liked Miles Sanders. There's nothing against Miles Sanders. Another Penn State guy. We loved him. But I'd say it's a little bit, just a little bit better for Saquon.
Much better.
Yeah. Next thing, the third wide receiver, Jahan Dotson over Quez Watkins. Kind of take your pick right there.
The bummers. I really like Quez, and I really want him to do stuff, and it just never happened. And it's same with Dotson. Even this past week, I'm like, get a few passes into him. Come on.
It's nice that Dawson ended the season with that 100-yard game against the Giants, and that led to him getting a touchdown catch against the Packers. So you can't forget about him. That's the good thing. He's not, you can't easily forget about him. That's what's good. Offensive line is almost exactly the same as well as the tight end. Goddard, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson the same. Lane Johnson at the right tackle. Biggest difference there, of course, going to be Jason Kelsey is missing. Right. Cam Jurgens replacing him, who was also on that 2022 team. Right. But Cam Jurgens, Pro Bowl center this year, gets the start in the Super Bowl now. Yeah.
And I think, the way Becton's been playing, which is a surprise to everybody, and Mailata is just more mature, and he's just a better player. And Dickerson, my goodness, he's, a 2-time Pro Bowl player now?
3, I think.
3 times, sorry. But, so I just think the line has been together a little bit more, and we don't really have any holes, even though, like you say, there's only been a few players that changed.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Sorry, pardon me. Like I said, okay, so going over the defensive side, Milton Williams kind of, he was on the team, wasn't as much of a starter then, I would say. Now you got him kind of starting at that defensive tackle position opposite Davis and Carter. This is where it's kind of hard. The defensive line feels like it was kind of different back then. You had Linval Joseph, Fletcher Cox, and Javon Hargrave. Now you got Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, and Carter. Now it's hard to argue the Cox, who's better, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox. That was the end of Fletcher Cox's career, so you could probably say that Jalen Carter, now entering his prime, is better than Cox was at that point.
Linval Joseph was kind of on the end of his, too.
I would take Davis over that as well, and then the Hargrave one's hard. Hargrave was great, so
great season.
I can't say Milton Williams is better than him, but Hargrave was also pass rush, just a pass rush and defensive tackle.
Right.
Wasn't great against the run. Yeah. Milton Williams is a little bit better against the run,
yes,
but not as good against the pass. So it's it's kind of tough to grade that.
That's why we have two defensive ends that hopefully can get sacks.
Yep. Josh Sweat still the same on that other side, as opposed to what it was Josh Sweat a few years ago.
Right.
The big change there going to be Hassan Reddick. No more Hassan Reddick. Now that belongs to Nolan Smith. Right. And a little bit of rotation with Jalix Hunt, and we'll see anything, maybe Brandon Graham playing in this game, but not get our hopes up there. Right. And then you got to talk about, Bryce Huff being on the team, of course. Bryce Huff, Josh Huff. It's always hard to do.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd say the defensive ends, kind of, you'd have to give it a downgrade. Hassan Reddick was amazing that year. Mm-hmm. Nolan Smith has been on fire, so there's nothing against him. Right. Obviously, Nolan Smith coming into the draft was compared to Hassan Reddick, so that's where you kind of have to take your pick there. And Hassan Reddick was having a great season, so I'd say we're a little bit not as good there, but I can't really say it's
we didn't have the sack numbers that we had that year either.
Yeah, well, we also didn't have any sacks in that Super Bowl, so
that's true.
So I guess that's
slipping all over the place.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm never letting that go.
I know. The linebacker position, I'd say, is a vast upgrade. TJ Edwards, who I thought was great, nothing against him, and Kaiser White, who also I think had a really good season that year. It's nothing against them. But Zach Bond, and if you had Nakobe Dean, you'd say it's astronomically better. But with Oren Burks even, I would still give the edge to this team. Zach Bond, an All-Pro Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Edwards and White were good, but Bond and Burks, I think that's a little bit more.
Been amazing the last 3 weeks.
I agree. The last 2 weeks, especially in the NFC Championship game against Washington.
Did not expect that, and he's been great.
Not at all.
Fantastic.
And then the corner position. So the defensive back position is kind of funny. Obviously, C.J. Gardner-Johnson had left, and Reed Blankenship didn't really start in that Super Bowl as Marcus Epps. But you still got those two guys playing. So CJ's back, of course, playing with Reed Blankenship. Darius Slay stays the same on his side, but the biggest changes really on the defense and maybe the entire team, I guess besides Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond, would be that other cornerback slot. Belonged to James Bradbury and Avonte Maddox. Now it's Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell.
Two Defensive Rookie of the Year
candidates.
Thank you.
Candidates, is that the word?
Yeah, I would say. Finalists.
Put finalists. That's better. Yeah, wait, I'll edit that all out. No, I'm just kidding. And then funny enough, the special teams with the change, usually you expect to kind of stay the same over a 2-year span. But no more Aaron Sipos. Right. Big change there, of course, being Braden Mann. Sipos, I didn't think he was bad with us. I thought he had actually a pretty good career with us. Unfortunately, in that Super Bowl, he did end up being pretty big liability, unfortunately. And then it kind of scarred us, and it scarred him, and it's a tough one to forget. But that was a bummer.
Plus, I would also say the punt return team was not as good because even if you look at the punt return that Tony made, there was 18 guys there. They just didn't tackle him.
Yep, I agree. So, yeah, overall, who's the better team, Dad? 2022 Eagles or 2024?
I say 2024 because of the offensive line and the running back we have. And,
that's true.
Just the maturity that these young guys that have come out there, Cooper and Quinn, they play above their years. I mean, they really do.
Listen, real quick, sorry, not to go backwards. I don't want to go back and do with them, but just to point out the difference of this defense from 2 years ago. Milton Williams wasn't starting. Davis was fringe starter. Carter wasn't here. Nolan Smith wasn't here. Zach Bond wasn't here. Oren Burks wasn't here. Sweat was here. Quinyon Mitchell wasn't here. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was here. Blankenship was here. Slay was here. And Cooper DeJean was not here. Did I say 4 people were here? Did I say 4 or 5? I think I only said 4 or 5 people. That's insane.
That is insane.
I mean, to go back to a Super Bowl 2 years later with a whole new defense, and not just a whole new defense that was the number one defense.
I think CJ is a better player now.
100% agree.
He was good. He was a little bit of a hothead, a little bit of a
He's still a
showboat, maybe. Look at me. I think now he's bought into the team. What you want to build into Sirianni. He's become a team player. And like I said, they were on the sidelines hugging. Yes. And I wouldn't doubt, CJ said to him, you know what? I should have never left. And I'm glad I came back because you got this team ready to play.
Yep. All righty. A quick little reminder for you all listening to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and comment down below. And if you're listening as a podcast on Spotify or anything like that, you get your podcast, please please rate and subscribe wherever you are. Dad, let's real quick talk about some comments from the YouTube page.
Sure.
You go with that?
We had a lot of good comments this past week. Was nice.
Most comments in quite a while, actually.
Yeah, I like that.
Number one, going to be my Uncle Mike Rabeda. Great podcast. What a great day. Fired on all cylinders. Now, of course, this was in reference to the NFC Championship game. What a great day. Fired on all cylinders. Yeah, I would agree with what you posted, Dad. It was a glorious day.
It was a glorious day. It was a day to be an Eagle fan.
It was, which is what I said.
Nice.
Mike Roman from the group. Shout out to you, Mike. Great time for the whole team to show up. Defense is so good. Offense is unstoppable. Our backup players coming in and performing at a high level shows what depth we have. It's a great point. What a great time to be an Eagles fan. Only worry is our kicking game. Thanks for the podcast, guys. Yeah, I agree with you that the kicking game is a little bit scary. Still going into the postseason or in the Super Bowl. You're happy that he makes all of his extra points, which is great. That's the big one. Yeah. But you do get a little bit worried about some field goals.
Well, he's not going to have to kick a 54-yarder in the wind and rain at least. So
dome game.
Hopefully that helps.
Dome game.
Yeah. Rich field goals, all touchdowns.
Yep. Shout out to Rich Jameson, Dad's buddy. Great game by our birds. KC will struggle against our defense. We love it when all this talk about dynasty goes away. We'll love it when all this talk about dynasty goes away. Another great pod, guys. Yes, I agree. It's stupid to say it's the biggest game in Eagles history because obviously it is. Yeah. But that's what I posted. I mean, it's the biggest game in Eagles history because we got to save America from the three-peat and the awful Chiefs' reign. I mean, it's just.
I agree. I mean, that's how it works, right? Everybody's. I'm hearing all these knuckleheads, boycotting the Super Bowl. We don't want to see this game again. You'll be sitting at your bar watching the game, so just knock it off. Yeah. It's the same thing. If there were some other teams in there that I wouldn't want to see, I'm watching the game no matter what happens. So knock it off. You ain't boycotting. You'd be watching the commercials with your wife.
That's right. Aunt Margie, who also shout out to her, who also came up with the idea for the talking about the similarity between the two teams. Gotcha. She said, "What a great game! Both sides play amazingly." Now say it with me: defense wins championships. Okay. But with the 24-25 Eagles, so does the offense.
Stay with the list, though.
A defense with championships.
That's right.
I shouldn't have put that on tape. I don't want Ray Lewis to ever see that. That terrifies me.
Hey man, it was on the Madden game.
Yeah, if you're watching, listening, Madden 05 is my all-time favorite Madden game. I still play it to this day sometimes. Yeah. And the intro is Ray Lewis looking right at the camera saying, "Defense with championships," and he's got a lisp in it. I used to do that, and my dad always said, "Man, don't let him catch you say that. Don't ever say that to his face if you meet him." Sorry, real quick. Shout out to JJ. The Eagles yesterday had more rushing touchdowns than Dallas had for the entire season. Saquon had 3. Jalen had 3. Shipley 1. And the entire season, Ezekiel Elliott for Dallas had 3. Dowdle had 2. And Dak only had 1. Truly an amazing performance. Was lucky enough to be there at the link for it. Fully packed stadium an hour after the game. And Broad Street was an electric factory afterwards. Go Birds. Let's go win us a Super Bowl. That's right. I can't believe you got to go to that.
I know, man. I'll tell you what. It's so funny. We always talk about going. I'd be too nervous because I don't want to have to, spend the money and not win the game. But if I knew in advance they're winning the game, I'll spend whatever you need me to spend.
Yeah, I know. I agree, 100%. All right. Well, you got anything else about the game or anything else you want to say to the audience, Dad?
I don't.
Alrighty. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. If you like our Eagles Therapy podcast, do us a favor. Rate and subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and comment down below. Dad, you had something else?
Yeah, I do. We have a new board today with a new microphone, so hopefully everything's good. Let us know in comments if everything's okay. It's going to be our first shot in the dark with it. So we've got a new board. It's all colored up nice.
Pretty cool. I like it. Yeah, it's clean and
hope it works.
All right. You can email us your questions at oureaglestherapy@gmail.com. Other than that, from all of us here at Our Eagles Therapy Podcast, I'm Basil.
And I'm Baz.
Go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.